Welcome to Real Estate Exposed, helping people in San Diego buy, sell, and refinance their biggest investment, delivering you timely truths, exposing important issues, and helping you get into the right home. Here are your hosts, real estate expert Daniel Beer, top-ranked professional by sales volume at one of San Diego's largest brokerages, and his mortgage partner, Todd Pianin, with over $2 billion in funded loans.
Good morning to you. This is Real Estate Exposed. It's good to have Todd, my partner, here back from his trip to Aruba. How you doing, Todd?
I'm doing good. Kind of missed everybody being in the sunny country of Aruba, but we had a great time. So I'm glad to be back here with you on a beautiful Sunday morning, Dan.
That's awesome, and we're going to have a great show for you today because a lot's happening here locally in the San Diego market. First off, we're going to be touching... we're going to give you a story from something that actually happened, a factual story that happened just in this last week. Something unbelievable about the kind of trouble sellers are getting themselves into when not vetting their agent and understanding exactly who you're dealing with in business. Second, we're going to be talking about credit easing up and the implications that has on the local markets. What can we expect from the easing credit case, which is basically, on the surface of things, good, but what implications could be?
Or is a bubble coming again, basically, is the question that you asked earlier, right? So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, what are the implications of all that happening? We're going to jump in here, though, with a story that's striking San Diego. Everybody, it's big shockwaves across the county, and that's Qualcomm downsizing its workforce
by over 15%. So, I mean, it could affect us here in San Diego. I mean, there's about 2,200 people we figured out, right, Dan, that may be misplaced by this Qualcomm.
Well, here are the numbers. The numbers are Qualcomm has stated that they're going to downsize by roughly 15%. They currently employ they currently employ 31,000 people worldwide, and they have not stated where these cutbacks are going to take place.
Right.
Okay, so where are they going to downsize? We don't know. Now we do know that they have locally here in San Diego County about 15,000 employees. So 15,000 of you are employed at Qualcomm. All we can really decipher at this point is that, if we look at it proportionally, 15% of their workforce has been said to be cut. 15% of that $31,000 number is 2,250 households, which unfortunately will be looking for new work. I'm here coming soon, and we'll be, keenly tuned into all of their announcements. But that's very significant here for local market, all of that activity just coming from one company.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? I mean, Dan, if some of these people kind of get nervous and they decide after they get laid off or, whatever happens to them, I mean, how do you think that'll affect the real estate market? Do you think that we'll see a lot more inventory on the market? I mean, what's your crystal ball show on that?
Well, yes. I mean, we're going to see some more inventory. I don't even think this is a matter of if. I think we simply will be seeing some more inventory. People have gotten themselves... Like Qualcomm, it's like one of the most secure jobs you could have in San Diego County.
Right.
I mean, short of being in the military, Qualcomm's about second surest thing. It's wonderful.
Right.
It's wonderful, and let me tell you, that company's done so many good things for our local economy. So this isn't about bashing Qualcomm or hating on Qualcomm. It's just they're doing what's good for business.
Right. Right, we're definitely not bashing on Qualcomm.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious because from what I'm hearing, we're down to about 2 months worth of inventory in the marketplace right now.
Yes, exactly. So we have to go back when we're starting to think about what effect is this going to have on our economy. Let's put it into the full picture, which is exactly right. There's 2 months of inventory.
Right.
Okay, and what that means, folks, is if we stopped putting homes for sale, theoretically, 2 months from now, we'd be completely out of inventory. There would be no homes to sell 2 months from now if we stopped listing new homes.
So that means that you wouldn't be able to buy anything? I mean, basically, we'd sell out of inventory?
Theoretically, that's exactly what would happen. Now, in practice, there'd be a couple of, there's going to be some duds out there that'll just never sell.
Right.
But theoretically, on paper, it means that 2 months from now, we're out of homes.
Wow.
So a balanced market is said to be at 6 months. We have a tremendous selling environment right now in that there is more demand by far than there is supply.
So you call this a seller's market right now. This would be considered a seller's market?
This is a seller's market, and for that reason is why we're also having the home selling seminar that we're holding, and it's going to be a tremendous event that I absolutely encourage you to reach out to us. Get your free tickets. We're giving all our listeners who, if you want free tickets, but you have to reserve your spot because they do run out, you want to give us a shout, go ahead and simply call 800-646-4977. That's 800-646-4977. And you'll get your tickets to our free home selling seminar in which you're going to find out exactly how to gain the edge on the market, what are the most critical fix-ups that you need to do for your property, and which ones to avoid, because you only want to do the ones that will give you the maximum return on dollar.
Right.
You're going to learn how to create a psychological advantage over the buyer by completely deconstructing the traditional sales process that you see today and reestablishing it with a smarter strategy, which frankly we didn't make up. We're just taking our cue from better sources, from better funded sources, rather than just doing what we all do, right? Agents copy the generations of agents before them.
Don't give away too much information. We want them coming to this the home selling seminar.
I don't think I could give away too much information if I even tried right now, just because it's going to be awesome. It's the most exciting thing we've done. We've put so much effort into it. You're invited. Your free ticket is simply by calling 800-646-4977.
They can also find it. They can also find us on our Facebook page, on the Real Estate Exposed page too. You can also get that number there if you're driving, you don't have a place to write that down.
Absolutely, just reach us somehow. Look up Dan Beer, look up Todd Pianin, but jumping back in here with Qualcomm,
right?
Because it is such a seller's market. Yes, we're going to see more inventory. I mean, look, some people, they're going to be able to hold on. Some people, some people make great money at that company.
Right.
They're going to be able to figure it out. They'll quickly transition into new jobs. Their homes aren't. So it's not that 2,200 homes are coming to the market.
Right.
But what it does mean is that we're going to get some new inventory. From a market perspective, it may actually be welcomed.
So can I ask a question though?
Yeah.
Of 2 months of inventory, when you say that, I mean, what's that range in number of homes? I mean, is that like 30,000 homes, 10,000 homes? I mean,
roughly 7,000 or so homes.
So basically, if all 2,200 people owned homes at Qualcomm and they all put them on the market at once, we'd only pick up basically one more month worth of inventory.
That's a great way to put it, which is obviously a scenario that would never happen.
Right.
So only a portion of those are going to sell. Some of them will sell at different times. They're going to be staggered. Some will never come for sale. So, and by the way, we don't even know if 2,250 cuts will happen here locally in San Diego.
Right, we're just guessing.
A part of me hopes that the Jacobs family, which, again, let me say, they've been so good to our local economy. They've been so good to our community. They've been so good to everything San Diego. A part of me is hoping that those cuts won't be proportionally split and that they're going to protect San Diego a little bit more than other locations.
Right.
I hope so.
Right.
And I also have this belief in them, which is going to be that they're not doing this. Look, they want to continue growing.
Right.
It's not that they're trying to shrink. They're doing this. It's a breather.
Well, it's a right sizing of their business. Basically.
Exactly.
It's all they're doing is they're right sizing the business and making sure that it's good.
And if you actually read their statements and listen to what they've said, they're actually trying to gear themselves back up for growth. So. And I trust that'll happen.
It will, for sure.
They're the ones that. So it's ultimately going to be a blip in
the radar,
right? In the history of our local economy. It will have a temporary effect,
right?
And it will also affect certain neighborhoods more than others. I mean, there happens to be a lot of people employed at Qualcomm in the Mira Mesa markets.
Right.
There happens to be a lot of people employed at Qualcomm that are in Forest Ranch and in Del Sur here locally, the Santa Luz area. Those are markets that are pretty heavily, Carmel Valley, a lot of Qualcomm.
And those are pretty hot markets right now, though, right, Dan? I mean, those are areas.
They're super hot markets, so that, frankly, they could use a little bit more inventory.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And coming up here next, we're going to be jumping into a very interesting story. I'm going to hopefully shock the pants off of you with what is going on when some of you are talking real estate with your agent. Stay tuned. This is Real Estate Exposed, News Radio 600 KOGO. Back with you here. Good morning on a Sunday. It is Daniel Beer with Windermere Homes and Estates and Todd Pianin of Samuel Scott Financial. This is Real Estate Exposed, and we're jumping in
right away to a story I can't wait to hear about, Dan. So, I mean, I love the fact that our show's called Real Estate Exposed. So, we get to hear some of the stories, or I would say some of the horror stories that actually could happen, or some of the misrepresentation stories. I don't want to, tear down people, but so tell us this crazy experience you had on a listing appointment.
So literally just this past week,
right?
I go out on a listing appointment, somebody that actually heard us on the radio and wanted me to come out and
from the show. They heard you from the show
and meet with them at their house. So I show up just like anything else, right? I show up to this wonderful lady's house. Property happens to be, well, I'll withhold the location just because this thing is actually still fairly heated with the previous agent.
Okay.
So I show up to her house. We go through a presentation. I dig in exactly what went wrong. Why was she on the market for 6 months with this agent previously? Why did she only have 3 showings with this agent previously in 6 months?
In 6 months, in a seller's market right now, only 3. Okay.
What kind of advice she was receiving? What the just really trying to figure out how we could better serve this person.
Right.
And this is just a normal process. By the way, it was kind of awesome because right off the bat, she was just so sweet that I have to tell you, she offered me, and we sat there having this having this conversation, and she offered me a Mike's Hard Lemonade during our meeting, which was just kind of cool.
That's cool.
So
she's a cool lady for sure.
So and her husband is he's left town now because for a job situation. I'm trying to give you some detail, but be discreet at the same time. But point is she really needs to get moving with her life.
Right.
During our conversation, I'd been told by her, we'd been told that the property had expired off the MLS, that their listing contract had expired, had come to an end with the previous agent.
What does that mean, though?
Well, it means that they'd signed a contract for whatever it was. In their case, it was 6 months, and it had expired. The guy had failed to sell the home.
Got it.
So she was now a free agent again, right?
Okay.
She's free for anybody to work with. She's a free person. So, but I bring up the fact at the meeting, I say, it's still showing active. I'm here because you've invited me. I'm here because you've told me it expired.
Right.
Why am I seeing it active on the MLS? So here's where things just start getting weird right off the bat. She says, oh, well, he said that was normal to leave it active for 5 days beyond the expiration date just because people are going to start calling because it expired.
What? How is that even possible?
Well, it's not, and frankly, he'd get fined by the board of by the Bureau of Real Estate or by the MLS board if they found out about this, if it was reported. Which, by the way, I'm not reporting. I'm not telling. It's not. I'm keeping the identity here secret.
Right.
But it's not.
So
she was completely misled into holding this property with this person for an additional 5 days beyond
their
legal listing
contract
period.
agreement.
Exactly. Second, if you actually dig into the logic on that, it doesn't even make any sense. How would people find out? Okay, here, let me backtrack. Let me just go back. So if you're listening, the way it works is, and this is a terrible thing for people that do go in contracts and then they expire, is that the day your listing expires, you're going to get a ton of phone calls from agents. Okay, it just happens. There's all kinds of data services that they subscribe to. They get your phone number, and you'll start getting phone calls, and it's, hey, it's so-and-so with, XYZ Realty, and I'm calling because we have a buyer for your home. It's like, really? You have a buyer for my home today? It expired? Right. You're going to literally get hundreds of these.
Right.
So,
but do they have a buyer for those homes?
Oh, very, very, very rarely. Very, very rarely.
So it's kind of like a bait and switch kind of thing.
It's, in fact, very rarely is probably a huge overstatement. They don't.
Got it.
But those phone calls, though, this is why I wanted to backtrack to that, is that those phone calls are triggered by the actual listing showing up as expired in the MLS, which then triggers these databases, and so these people will call you.
Got it.
Well, what he told her is, I'm going to keep it active for an extra 5 days without a signed contract, illegally. I'm going to keep it active for an extra 5 days because all these phone calls are going to start coming in because you expired. Well, wait a second. No phone calls going to start coming in because
it doesn't show expired.
It doesn't show expired. You've
right.
left it active. You extended it artificially. So right off the bat there's an issue. Finally.
Misleading.
Exactly. So I go to her home. She lets me know the next morning that she wants to move forward, that she feels extremely comfortable. Everything is good.
After how many Mike's Hard Lemonades?
Just one.
Oh, okay.
Just one. And so that day she has her agent. She says, hey, look, just expire it. I don't want this active thing. Expire it.
Right.
Sure enough, the phone calls start coming in. And all of a sudden, there's like an offer coming in from someone that's never seen the house, that presents it through him, that somehow has her. It's just like this fishy story. Somehow the guy knows about it, though he kind of pretended not to know about it. And there's just some real fishy stuff going on.
Do you think that maybe like the old realtor was trying to keep the listing by saying I have a buyer and trying to like say don't relist with somebody else?
Has somebody write the offer, submit it, try to tie her back up, tries to put, literally sends her a contract, says, hey, just sign this and we'll take care of it. It has an extension. Okay, so he's trying to, it's just so darn shady, and it pisses me off because as a professional in this business, and let me tell you, there are people in this business that sell real estate, that do loans, that are just as professional, just as admirable as any doctor, lawyer, accountant, physicist, anything you could imagine in any professional service. But it is shenanigans like these that have us needing to like protect our integrity because of the rotten few.
This may be a dumb question, Dan. I'm sorry to ask this, but he had the house for 6 months to sell. So, I would ask you this question straight up. If you had a property that hadn't sold for 6 months, probably could be price, it could be difficult seller, whatever it is, you wouldn't. You'd probably want to get rid of that and move on to the next deal, right? You're not going to do something shady.
As far as shady is 100% not. As far as wanting to move on, it depends. It depends. If I'm always ready and willing to work with somebody that wants to work, wants to have their ears open to the feedback the marketplace is giving them, wants to make a job. I can work with the person like that all day long.
Right.
So it just depends on the situation. But
you wouldn't do something like that, though. That's crazy. This guy's crazy.
Todd, the point is that 99.9% of our industry would not do something like that. Most people wouldn't, but the rotten few hurt the integrity of our industry.
Right.
And even removing that aside,
right,
you want to know, if you're selling your home, you want to know who you're dealing with. And just because you see them, putting flyers all over your neighborhood, just because they're on a park bench, just because you know their name, do you actually know how much business they're doing or not doing? Because when I was also sitting in this woman's living room,
right,
and she was like, Dan, should I do this? Should I do that? I'm getting this advice. People think I should do all these different things. I said, well, wait a second. Let's grab the computer. Let's go on the MLS, and let's look up these people's production. What is the experience behind the advice that you're receiving? Are you receiving advice from somebody that's going to sell 100 homes this year, or somebody that's going to sell just the minimum few?
So is there a website that people can go to that just without having to call you or call a professional just to see, or is there like a Better Business Bureau, or is there?
There's not an extremely accurate place for them to go, but what can happen is that an agent that's going to work in a transparent manner.
Right.
And by the way, I did this blind in front of her.
Right.
For all I knew, I was going to eat my words, and the guy had sold 200 homes in the last 6 months.
Right.
Okay. But so we pull it up. I say, okay, you're getting advice from, John Smith.
Right.
Let's pull it up let's just qualify the experience behind the advice. 5 homes sold this year. Okay. You're getting advice from, Jenny Smith.
Right.
Let's pull up 14 homes sold this year. Much better.
Right.
Almost 3 times as much.
Right.
Much better.
Right.
So let's pull mine up.
Well,
okay.
We know your numbers.
Great. Right? So we're at 68 so far year to date, and we're going to track about 120 or so for the year.
Right.
So it's not about building myself up and doing this, because like I said, I might have eaten my words and they might have had far more. It's about qualifying the experience. And for that reason, call us, get your free tickets to the home selling seminar, 800-646-4977. Get in touch with us. Come to the free home selling seminar so you can know exactly what to look for, just like what we're talking about. And those tickets are free to you. Reserve your spot, 800-646-4977. This is Real Estate Exposed, News Radio 600 KOGO. Back with you. This is Real Estate Exposed. I'm Daniel Beer at Windermere Homes and Estates with Todd Pianin, one of the leading mortgage professionals in San Diego County. And Todd, I want to jump in right here with you right away. And we are constantly being asked by people, whether it be at my dad's 60th birthday dinner just a short time ago,
right?
Just all the time, we're asked, what are the credit markets like? How easy is it to get a loan? Is getting a mortgage, just still as tough as getting a backiotomy?
So what I say to people all the time is it used to be very difficult, right? It was very tight. Things were very hard. Down payments heavy. Right now we're not seeing that. What we're seeing is a lot more leniency, a lot more easing up in the marketplace. I mean, we're getting loans approved that you only have to file 1-year tax returns, for example, and you can get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan. We're seeing loans that we can do with only 10% down. You can buy $1.5 million house. I mean, I'm seeing all kinds of things that are popping on the market, and you have all the government-sponsored loans, and we've talked about multiple times on the show, the Veterans Administration loans that you can do 0 down, on some programs up to, 0 down up to $600-something thousand on a VA loan.
Is it just the guidelines that are changing, or are some of the underwriters actually starting to overlook the guidelines or just not scrutinize them as much as they used to?
No, what's happening is you're seeing like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're getting easier. So before, we would ask you for 2 years tax returns. We'd ask you for all your W-2s, all your pay stubs. And now what we're seeing is that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac just came out recently and they said, hey, we don't need to see someone's tax returns for the last 2 years. We can only see 1-year tax returns. That's fine. Let's not over document the file, which is super exciting. I mean, we're seeing the big, what I want to say, aggregators, which are Fannie and Freddie, which are buy most of the loans except for the jumbo market. We're seeing them to start easing up on their guidelines. Another thing we're seeing that they did recently, which was amazing, was the ability. If, let's say, Dan, you were going to sell somebody a home that had their existing home, and they didn't want to sell their home, you would have to have a big percentage of equity in that house to be able to use rental income on that property to be able to help them qualify for their new home. Fannie and Freddie did away with that. And so now you could sell somebody a home and they don't have to have, let's say, before they had to have 30% equity in their home to be able to rent that out. Now they don't need to do that anymore. We can have them, you could rent their home out. I can use that income to help them qualify for their next purchase.
Would that home actually have to be already rented out, or would it be like appraised rental value?
You could do both. You have option 1 or option 2. I mean, preferably they'd like to see it being rented out by the time you're going to buy your new house. So, obviously, if you were the agent selling the house, they would want you to also market that property for lease, and then hopefully you can almost lease the house at the same time that you're selling them the new house.
Because it's definitely a great step in the right direction. And ideally, we would avoid that double move aspect, which is actually something that we talk about a lot at our home selling seminar. That's a big focus. Because so many people have that issue, Todd, where you're moving, you're buying, but you're selling. How do you coordinate them? You have contingencies on one, but there's all these moving pieces. And what you don't want to do typically is write a contingent offer because of the disadvantage it puts you in. So there's ways in which people can actually control both ends of the transaction. So that's interesting. That's why I'm asking you that. And that's what we jump into in the home selling seminar that we're holding free. But you do have to reserve your spot, of course, and we have multiple locations around the county, so there's going to be somewhere convenient to you. Look, if you want Todd and I to send these out to you, we'll send tickets out right away. We'll get to meet. You'll be at our home selling seminar. It's more than a seminar, though. It's a workshop. Like we're gonna workshop right through the most important aspects of having any home sold. It's
an educational event. It's basically you're going to educate them.
It's going to be a community educational event. The phone number to get your free tickets is 800-646-4977. Here's actually something really cool we haven't mentioned, is that by calling in and getting your free tickets, the first few people that get their tickets reserved, you're actually going to be entered into a raffle that is going to make you eligible for a free home staging package from our professional home staging crew.
Oh, that's cool. That's super cool. I like that idea.
So it's going to be 800-646-4977. Call us, get your free tickets, reserve them now. 800-646-4977. There are lunchtime workshops and after work workshops, so it's going to be convenient for you. 800-646-4977. Todd, so jumping back in here with the credit markets,
yeah.
What, are we? What is the greater implication as the markets do ease? That's wonderful to hear. Like if you're listening, you want a loan, you're basically being told that you're going to go through a much more enjoyable process. There's not as much pain anymore.
Correct.
It's easier for you to qualify. You still have to be able to have legitimate income.
Correct. You still need to qualify for the mortgage, but we're not going to ask you for all the things that we used to ask you.
You don't need a letter from your dead grandmother?
No, you don't, or a letter from God.
Okay. So are we? What does this imply regarding the lending cycle, Todd, and any potential, bubbles, so to speak?
I don't see it as a bubble, Dan. What I see happening is I think that as we saw, like the first-time homebuyer market kind of explode, and it's very difficult to get into that space because of lack of inventory. I think that this is going to ease up, and what this is going to do is this is going to let the move-up buyer be able to move up, so they can actually turn their existing property, if they choose to, into a rental property, or do it the right way for you to sell it for them. And so I think that you're going to see the next level, the next wave is going to be the move-up buyer, and I think that's where we're headed. We're headed to the move-up buyer situation.
I can't think of a better time to be a move-up buyer. Really, actually, let me rephrase that. I actually can't think of a better time to establish your living situation, not for your needs today, but for your needs over the next 10 years, over the next 15 years. If you have a growing family, you need to be a move-up buyer. I mean, come on. The market's red hot. It's a seller's market.
Right.
But unlike in most sellers' market, you're going to be able to sell and then buy into an extremely low rate.
Correct.
With what you're telling me are easing.
I mean, we have a transaction right now that one of your buyer's agents put into escrow, and the client is actually relocating out from Georgia. And so he was hoping to sell his home before he bought this new home that he's buying from Brian Denny in your office. And and all of a sudden he's saying, I can't buy the house because my house isn't selling in Georgia. And we came up because of the new program, and he's buying $1 million home. He's definitely a move-up buyer, but he's also relocating out here at the same time. So because of the new program with the new guidelines, we're actually able to use that property being leased in Georgia, and we can get him to qualify, and we can get him more time to sell his house basically in Georgia, and we can get the transaction closed.
I think that's awesome. That's awesome. And because I really do believe this is the time when you have to make the move that's going to be good for you and your situation, your family, over the next 10, 15 years. You might be a move down buyer. You might be downsizing. But how nice to downsize into today's lending environment.
Right.
And
where interest rates are still really, really low. I mean, we're talking about doing a deal for this guy with a 4 in front of it. I mean, this is a pretty good deal.
What could somebody expect today on a 30-year fixed?
Anywhere from, I would say the range is anywhere from 3 3/4 on a, could be as low as 3 3/4 and could be as high as 4 1/4, 4 3/8, somewhere in that range.
They're great. So we're still in the same range there. It's just, you have to take advantage of that. Yep. You have to take advantage of that. And if any part of you has been wanting to avoid, here's what I'm getting from it, right? If I'm busy,
right,
and I don't like to do a bunch of paperwork,
right,
and I'm still going to have to do some, but once I do it, I don't want to be asked to do it 3 times over like it used to be.
Right.
So it's good news to hear that the lending environment is easing. I agree with you that it's not a bubble issue whatsoever. It's also such a different environment we're in. At some point down the line, we're going to have some kind of adjustment. I think we might be looking at 3 to 4 years from now, some kind of something. When
interest rates pop up, I think you're going to start seeing a little bit of an adjustment. You'll probably see that.
But I think that's only going to be true if they just suddenly create shock in the market. And
right.
they've been rising.
Right.
They were at 3.4.
Right.
If they gradually rise, I don't think you're going to see that kind of shock. But invariably, it'd be completely just asinine of either of us to say that we're never going to see an adjustment. At some point we will, but it's going to be an extremely different environment from what we saw before because people qualify for their homes. People can actually pay their mortgage today.
Correct.
They didn't write it down on a napkin.
Exactly.
So we're going to dive in, and again, as we come back, and we're going to talk a lot more about what you could expect at that home selling workshop, but you're going to want to reach out to us. Get your free tickets, reserve your space, especially for you, our Real Estate Exposed listeners. We want to meet you. Come out. We have lunchtime and after work workshops across the county. They're coming up, and your free tickets are at 800-646-4977. That is 800 800-646-4977. We want to see you. This is Real Estate Exposed, News Radio 600 KOGO. Good morning, back here with you. This is our final segment of our show today. Man, it goes by fast.
It does. It's such a fun Sunday, though.
It's great. And here's what and more than anything, Todd and I are just energized because this is Real Estate Exposed. We're talking about this home selling workshop, these community events that we're staging all across the county.
Right.
There's lunchtime meetings and afternoon
meetings.
Okay, after work. And we're going to give you a taste for what's going to be discussed at these workshops.
We're going to give them a tease.
Well, if you're thinking about selling your home in the next 12 months, you need to be there.
Right.
And you need to be there because we're going to be showing you how to set up the most advantageous process for you to sell your home in the fastest amount of time. We'll actually show you how to sell your home within 96 hours of going on the market.
96 hours.
Within 96 hours, we're going to show you how to sell your home. And how to do it at the most the market will bear. And I love that phrase because every agent says they're going to give you the most the market will bear. But if you think about the traditional selling process, which involves John, Jenny, and James trickling into your home all on their own to look at your house.
Private showings.
In this private little showing, and they get to just wander around, and there's no competition. Is that the most the market will bear? And I think not. I know not.
I say no.
And we show you how to systematically actually do the one thing that it's supposed to be done. Deliver the home to the market, deliver the market to the home on your terms, in your way, where you're also not having to turn your house upside down and go scrub the floors and run through fire drills multiple times a day.
Every day.
Now, showing that? No. So we cut that out.
What about, you going to give any tips, like little nuggets, Dan? Is there anything you're going to give? Let's give our viewers, like, what are 3 things that somebody could do right now to their house to make it more attractive? Yeah,
and so part of this is, you're bringing product to the market.
Right.
You're bringing a very important asset, your unique home, and we have to understand exactly how a buyer starts processing that information the moment they park their car and take that first glance at your house. So there's some easy wins that you can have. If you and they seem kind of just like talking points at first, but if you really put yourself in the buyer's shoes.
If you're driving up to the house, I'm the buyer, driving up, and I look, the first thing I see, what would be the first thing I would see?
You're going to see the front of the house, right? You're going to see the quality of the landscaping. You're going to see has it been taken care of? You're immediately making a judgment because that's how we're built.
Right.
And I'm not going to judge us for judging because that's just how we're built.
Well, we're judgers.
We are your buyer's going to make a quick judgment. And look, we've all heard to do the lawn and, curb appeal. That's not where I'm going. I want to give you actually actionable items right now that you can take with you, whether or not you come to the home selling seminar, which you have to come and be at. Call, get your free tickets, reserve them now, 800-646-4977. One more time, I'll say it. 800-646-4977.
Or they can find us on Facebook at Real Estate Exposed, or look up Dan Beer and Todd Pianin. So that way, if you're driving, we don't want you to get in that car accident.
But here's something practical. Your buyer's walking up to your home. What is the first thing that they touch? The first thing they touch of your property is your front door, and particularly the hardware, the handle to the front door. You might have the greatest home ever. You might have a beautiful layout. You might have put in a stone fireplace and redone your floors inside. You might have done all kinds of things to your home. But the way that the human brain works is that it judges, and it judges quickly. And that handle is the first thing that somebody literally grabs, touches, holds. Think about the significance of that. This is something most people would overlook. They'd say, hey, but look at all these other things I've done. The reality is that when somebody shows up and holds your crusty, old, just worn handle, and that's not a judgment. It's just a fact. That's how a lot of doorknobs or handles are.
Sends a message.
Immediately, you've injected them through the sense of touch, mind you.
Right.
You've injected them with this feeling of, oh, that was grimy, or that seems old, that didn't look new, that didn't look taken care of. And so on the flip side of that, if it's new and and by the way, folks, we're not talking about spending the world on anything. We're talking about $80 to enhance a multi-$100,000 asset. There's no exact price for your home. There's a probable range. But if I were to resell every home I've sold this year, they'd all sell at a different number.
Right.
There is no exact to the penny number. And when you're talking about multi-$100,000 assets, like your home, well, $80 is negligible completely, and the effect it has for someone to say, wow, this is already new, this is good. They're not going to actually say it out loud, but subconsciously that's going to happen.
Right.
Then they walk in, they carry that feeling through. And here's another example of it, and it's not through a fix-up, but just to highlight the psychology at play. When, I remember selling a home that had soaring ceilings when you walked in, and the rest of the home had rarely low ceilings.
Right.
And we'd constantly get and we would constantly get comments from the buyers in their feedback saying, "Hey, we love the high ceilings." Well, the ceilings were low. They were just high in the entryway, but they immediately took that feeling, kept it, and just judged that the whole thing was that way.
That was beautiful. That's beautiful.
There are so many other little things like that you could do, whether they be the garage door, very simple ways to turn a bland garage door, faux finish it, and boom, it looks like it's the most beautiful wood door you've ever seen. We're going to show you exactly how to walk through those fixes and, of course, how to structure the entire selling process. It is a process. You can't just be guessing at it, whether it be you or your agent.
Right.
It's an established, systematic, predictable process that you're going to learn by calling. Join us. Call 800-646-4977. Get your tickets to our free home selling seminar. This workshop is going to be awesome. 800-646-4977. Get the locations and times, and we'll send your tickets out to you free right away.
Great Sunday, Dan. Can't wait for the selling seminar.
This is Real Estate Exposed, News Radio 600 KOGO with Dan and Todd.